If you take a look at the Crusader Kings 3 Royal Court Steam page, you'll see mixed reviews. Not just mixed, but actually split perfectly down the middle. At the time of recording, 50-50 between positive and negative. And if you delve into the reviews, whether they're on Steam or in the YouTube comments section, you'll see a variety of opinions, again, positive and negative, some very emotionally charged, others disappointed. In this video, I want to ask and answer one simple question. Why do people hate Crusader Kings Royal Court? Before that though, I thought I'd ask you, my community, and 1.7 thousand people responded, and you can see the results on screen here around how you potentially think about Royal Court. And while we're not a Crusader Kings channel, we do play strategy games, so we do have that bias, and it was a relatively small sample size. However, what does Royal Court actually give? Well, it gives you, of course, the Royal Court, the actual courtroom itself, 3D rendered for the first time in Paradox Grand Strategy. We also get court artifacts, personal in our inventory, and others that we can put on display. A revamped culture system behaves a lot more like the faith system. It's dynamic and fluid. Cultures can diverge and merge and hybrid into one. And of course a whole load of other features as well, from court positions to languages. Some of these were added for free in the 1.5 update, including things like cultural traditions, but for the most part, and of course including the actual royal court, the courtroom itself, you're going to have to pay to play. And that is one of the big things, of course, that drives the 50% negative. Those who don't think the DLC is a good thing, or at least those who reviewed it negatively. Let's talk about the different things that are motivating people to try and understand why they hate Crusader Kings 3 Royal Court, or indeed, love it. First and foremost, I think we have to talk about what the pack actually delivers and whether people like it or not. I'm going to offer some positive and negative perspectives in this video, and if you have an opinion on this, which you likely do, otherwise you wouldn't be watching, please do share it below in the comments, but don't forget we're all human beings. Whether you think this is great or whether you think this is not, we're all people, so just bear that in mind. First up, one of the things that I hear a lot about this DLC is how fantastic it is, because it has for the first time added 3D rendered environments into a Paradox game, or at least into a Crusader Kings game, to my knowledge. Of course, the Royal Courtroom itself is a huge divergence away from the standard sort of spreadsheet, you know, loads of numbers, loads of word, wall of text gameplay that we know and probably love Crusader Kings 4. I think that the Royal Court also helps to break the mold, and many people have commented that on my YouTube videos and on the Steam reviews. It's nice to be able to jump into a completely different environment, but also bring a bit of reality to what could otherwise be pretty obscure characters. It helps to make them feel real, and it helps you to interact with them more. Indeed, sort of bringing the Crusader Kings mindset of being a character and living that character and their legacy in their life, and helping to make it a little more real. Now, on the flip side, of course, I hear the counter argument that instead of perhaps adding things that aren't in Crusader Kings 3 already, that maybe were in previous titles, they've gone and done this instead. The argument being, where are my trade routes? Where's my whatever? Where's my whatever else it might be? I've seen lots of comments of features that were in CK2 and aren't here, and instead they're doing this. That's the mindset. Again, I'd just like to reiterate, not mine. Those are the perspectives on that. Moving through, the next layer then becomes around how the DLC fits with the rest of the game. Is it actually worth its value? Because of course, all of this underpins price. At the end of the day, as consumers and players, we are paying a price for a service. And I should note, by the way, this is not sponsored. I bought this DLC just like you did, okay? Just to clarify. Anyway, we're paying for a service and we expect it to deliver. So, how did it deliver? On the one side, the 50% positive argue that this DLC delivered perfectly. A fairly seamless experience by enveloping itself into the pre-existing game, okay? It took a fairly simple culture system and really revamped it and made it something special. The counter-argument to that, of course, is that it should have already been like that. There's a sort of a sense among the community of something being added that should have already been there. Again, it's that hark back to CK2. And if you've played other strategy games outside of Crusader Kings, you've probably seen this play out many times. Think Civilization 6 before it receives its DLC, and then it receives its expansion, And there's a feeling, a sentiment among players that it was rightfully theirs, that it should have been there initially because it was included in a previous game. In this example, it would be Civilization V. There are other elements, of course, that the Royal Court has added, and again, elements that are proving to be divisive, to bring us back to the core question, why do people hate Royal Court? It's that divisivity, and also, I think, a constant feeling of this should have already been here, or this wasn't worth what I paid. Again, that underlying question of value, and we'll touch on that again one more time, but first, it's important to consider some of the other positives that people are feeling about this DLC. There's a strong feeling of additional customization, of personality being added to the game. Now, of course, the Royal Court itself adds that, not just as a 3D rendered environment where you can see your characters sitting in court and interacting with each other, but also through other things that it adds. Think about all of the different events that have been added, right? Two dukes walk into your court. Sounds like the start of a really bad joke. And you have to solve differences between them, or whatever it may be. The point here is that it adds a layer of customization that hasn't perhaps been seen before. Moreover, of course, there are new elements of customization to CK3 beyond that. Think the customization of your banner, which you can customize to the nth degree. I've got mine saying like and subscribe at the moment, just for lols. Flavor cards and other elements help to add more personality to this DLC pack, and that helps to shape a game that's more interesting for players who are approaching it more from a storytelling perspective instead of a number crunching spreadsheet perspective. Now, again, to reiterate back to our thesis, why do people hate it? There's a counter that is often played here, and it's, should have been there initially. Why was this not here already? It's an argument that is a difficult one to pick apart because it doesn't offer anything in response other than say, why not already here? And now, again, not my place to say that they're necessarily right or wrong. My perspective, if you haven't already seen my other videos and live streams though, should be fairly apparent. I think this is a good DLC pack. It adds great value, flair, and flavor to Crusader Kings. However, there is one thing we are yet to address, and I've hinted at it a couple of times, so it's time to take the cat out of the bag, and it's PRICE, price. And fundamentally, out of all of the things that I've argued here, I think they all fall back on price. Because at the end of the day, whether you think it's a good DLC or bad, the question that you're probably weighing up, whether you realize it or not, is it providing value to me? Did I get my value? Do I feel seen and heard? And do I feel like I've got a good deal? So let's talk price. $30 is what it retails at. However, if you'd pre-ordered and got the Royal Edition or whatever it's called, then included in that you'll also get the Northern Lords flavor pack and another flavor pack that has yet to be announced. It's important to note as well that the DLC not only being priced at $30 was also delayed. And that's another thing that I've seen and heard. A common criticism is I paid $30 for this and I got it 8 months after I thought I was going to get it. And that is totally fair. That is a totally fair criticism because it sucks to be late. It sucks to be late. It sucks to be waiting on something and not get it, particularly when you want it, right? Nobody's upset about something being late unless they actually want it to get here. And I think that's important to remember as well. Now back to price. At the end of the day, $30 for a DLC is on the higher end, but also not unheard of. I don't think it's actually that ridiculous, and I think if you jumped onto Steam and had a look at similar grand strategy games, or even strategy games more broadly, you'd see that a substantial DLC pack, rather than just a flavor pack that adds, you know, a couple of cultures or a couple of textures or something, they do tend to be priced at sort of $25 to $30. That's not a ridiculous price point, in my opinion. Do I want to pay $30 of my hard-earned money for a DLC? No, of course I don't. I'd much rather keep my $30 and have the fun experience, but unfortunately, that's not an option. At the end of the day, price is a very personal point. For me, it's quite a bit of money, and I have to think about that decision. For you, it might be completely unobtainable, or nothing. But either way, I think that fundamentally, it comes down to that question of value. And why do people hate Royal Court? Again, it's value. Did they get their money's worth? So why do people hate Royal Court? Well, at the end of the day, it is always going to be a personal decision, but I think it's one heavily underpinned by value. And if you're wondering, by the way, what my opinion is, I love it. It's a fantastic DLC, and I would happily buy it again. Thank you very much for watching.